Hi everyone, this is Megan Van Petten.
And this is Lindsay Poss. You're listening to the EsportsNext podcast. Here, we will highlight the fantastic guests and speakers of the EsportsNext conference.
EsportsNext 2022 is presented by Morgan Stanley and is located in Sweet Home, Chicago. Don't forget to register to secure your spot at the conference and enjoy the show.
Hello, and welcome to the very first inaugural episode of the EsportsNext podcast, the official podcast of the EsportsNext conference. I'm Lindsay the Boss Poss, and I'm joined today by my friend and co-host Megan Van Petten.
Thank you, Lindsay. For our inaugural episode, we are delighted to welcome Sharon Gill, who is a leadership strategist at Sharon Gill International. Sharon, welcome to the show.
I'm delighted to be here and to be your first guest on this, I know is going to be an amazing podcast for an amazing conference. So glad to be here as your first guest, ladies.
Well, we're really glad that you accepted the invitation, and tell us a little bit about yourself as we kick off.
Okay, well, let me just explain what got me to esports in the first place, right? So, which was, of course, this woman right here, Megan Van Petten. In 2020, I came on board with the Esports Trade Association as their leadership strategist to help them as they were growing and putting together a board and all these wonderful things. And so I was thrown into esports. Not that I wasn't familiar with it. As a mom and a grandmom of gamers, right? I was part of the whole esports ecosystem, but paying the money to get my kids these games, but being part of the leadership piece was really Megan's invitation to be part of Esports Trade Association. So my role there has been to help with strategies, board development, strategic planning, watching the growth, conference chair last year, conference co-chair this year. So yeah, I feel like I'm totally immersed at this point into the esports industry.
So fun. Can you tell me a little bit about what your role at the conference will be?
Yes. So last year, I was the facilitator of the elevator pitch workshop, and I am again the trainer again this year. So at the conference, I actually run and host that whole piece. So before the conference, of course, we're going to select 8 finalists, maybe 7, and then I'll do a wildcard there at the conference. So we have 8 finalists. I introduce the finalists. I count them down. They only have 2 minutes to pitch. I ring the bell. I allow the judges time. I ring the bell. So yeah, I'll be running that whole elevator pitch competition as well as a speed networking competition.
Ooh, I'm gonna be coming after you for that bell ringing position here soon. That sounds like fun.
I was not popular last year. People were annoyed by that.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
The elevator pitch has drawn more excitement than I've ever seen. Tell us a little bit about what your strategy has been through this process and how it's evolved.
Interesting. Last year's class was primarily entrepreneurs, a lot of startups. This year, the folks who are in the workshop right now, they're experienced. Some of them already have gotten funding. So my strategy is really to help them to get their pitch from 15 minutes to 2 minutes. 2 minutes. It's very hard. So at the first class, I said, okay, how long is your pitch? Like 15 minutes with PowerPoint. I'm like, we're going to work on getting it to 2 minutes with no PowerPoint. So it takes practice. It takes work. And really the class is like a mini pitch competition in itself because the students are judges. So as each person pitch, we have a judge, and we give feedback right there in real time. It's really an exciting class and a lot of learning and just a lot of experiential learning. It's very hands-on and real-time feedback. So by the time they get to the conference, they're used to, really pitching in 2 minutes.
Well, let me just say, as someone who works in the podcast space, I intentionally am never in a situation where I have to go from 15 minutes to 2 minutes. It's actually very good in this space to go the opposite direction, which is why I'm here. Sharon, I want to talk a little bit more about your leadership development experience and kind of how you stay motivated despite any barriers or obstacles, and what advice you give to people to stay motivated, to be the ones entering the pitch competition and putting themselves out there. How do you approach challenges, and what advice do you give people about that?
So that's like 10 questions, but that's okay.
Well, it's kind of the same, I'm trying to get a lot of your experience packed into one answer.
That's okay. It's interesting. I had a call this morning, and I was actually asking the folks on the call that very same question. So now it's really turned this way. So I believe a lot in personal development, right? I believe that we should be constantly growing. And if we're not growing, we're dying. And so I got involved in leadership really 20 something years ago, starting my own law firm with my husband. So we were both leaders there. So I called it Gill University, right? Because it was real time. And then I spent 16 years in the nonprofit world, starting and growing and building a charity. Then I went back to school later on and got a degree in leadership and organizational management. And I stay current by just really a lot of reading. If you see, in my office, it's just leadership books, management books, culture books, a lot of podcasts, seminars, workshops. I'm always pouring in because I have to pour in so much for my clients. And I know one of the questions is like, who inspires me? But I remember being obsessed at one point with Jack Welch. Everything was, what would Jack Welch do? What would he say? What would he do? And just doing a whole study on him and his decision-making abilities and how he would think. And so I fall in love with these mentors like Welch and like Maxwell, study them and try to really pattern my style to the ones that most match my values. So yeah, that's in a nutshell, my leadership journey. It's something I do every day. I do agree with the statement that everything rises and falls on leadership. And the more I'm in the field, the more I see the importance of having strong leadership skills. How, it can make or break a company.
This really does keep you in the field. And I really appreciate that about you. Just coaching and mentoring and consulting, and then, just also being in the work. You see a lot of professors in college that leave the field. And I think the best mentors, professors, leaders, coaches are still playing the game. Yeah. So, if it was me, I would love to be part of your class and part of the pitch. What can people do to still partake? Is it too late? And what about, I heard about you're doing the Wildcard again this year. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the Wildcard is, we're going to choose 7 people because we only have so much time at the conference. And I had to when I do the math, it's 2 minutes per person for a pitch, 4 minutes for each judge. So I have to do the math to crunch the numbers. But at the conference, if you weren't chosen the day before the elevator pitch, you are given a chance to pitch for 2 minutes and have the audience pick. And so there's another chance for you to get into the competition on the competition day. So that's always fun because you get to hear, these people, some of them aren't really, haven't really been trained, haven't really been, through the class, but they have a chance to actually come up and just say their best, give their best pitch in 2 minutes. And then the audience, based on their clap levels, the audience chooses. So yes, that's how that works. And it's not too late to join the class because it's organic, right? So it's not too late. I don't have a textbook. Every week is pitching. Every week we're pitching. So it's never too late to come in.
That's so fun. And speaking of kind of your experience building a law firm, your experience developing a leadership program, how did you make that pivot into gaming and keep yourself current on news, resources, information? What sources were you going to learn about gaming? Well,
so first source is my kids. Because when I first started with ESTA and I kept hearing all these terms, I'm like, what does this mean? What are they talking about? Even this chair right here was a Mother's Day gaming chair for my kids once I began working with ESTA. So that was my first source. And then, of course, I am with ESTA, and they have a library of resources. So I read that as well. They have a research library. They have blogs and posts. So their own Facebook and LinkedIn pages. So I'm learning through what they post. And then our members, I also follow some of the members. So I read their pages, like esports, business of esports. I like to read their stuff. So John Davidson, which is our chair, I like to read his chair letter. Keeps me current. So there are so many opportunities being a part of ESTA for you to learn about the industry, learn about the business, and then I attend these board meetings and these advisory board meetings. So I'm constantly learning. I'm in team meetings every week. So I'm constantly learning the business just by being associated with ESTA.
And what lies ahead? Like, if people want to get involved with the EsportsNext conference, August 22nd, what can we do for the next 90 days?
I tell you, last year, the conference was beyond my expectations because it was almost 2 years of being in timeout, in lockdown and whatever. And, we were a little bit nervous about how it would work and, who would show up. And I tell you, it was such an amazing conference. It's so hard to beat it this year. But I would say to anyone who's on the fence, right, get your ticket. Someone was saying today that their biggest takeaway from the conference was the networking, 1 hour of networking when we had the networking hour, right? And so everyone can find their special spot. For some people, it was an elevator pitch. For some, it was a panels. For some, it was a networking event. For some, it was the bars. For some, it was the after party. So there's something for everyone. And I really encourage the listeners, the watchers of this podcast to get your tickets early. Secure a spot, because at some point we are going to get sold out. At some point, we are going to be sold out.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to it, especially since I am from a Chicago family and love visiting just for the food. So if nothing else, at least come and get a good slice of deep dish.
Great point. I did an extra few days last year after the conference just to hang out in Chicago. I made it a vacation, my husband and myself. We spent a week.
Right.
So yeah, for the food and for the ambiance.
It is a great city. I am completely partial as a lifelong Bears fan and Bulls fan. I'm totally partial to the city of Chicago, but that is neither here nor there. Sharon, can you tell me one specific memory you had of last year's conference that you're looking or sort of excited to revisit? Is there anything that sticks out as like, this was the most fun part?
Well, I will tell you, I did like the wit. I mean, other than the elevator pitch, which was my baby.
Right.
So,
of course.
I'm totally selfish. But I did enjoy being at the WIT. I thought it was just, it was such a great networking event. The food was amazing. The hosting was amazing. So I remember the WIT because I remember the food. They had just had great food. I also enjoyed our luncheon at the conference because that was also great food. So yeah, it sounds like I'm a foodie. But you know what? That really was a fun part for me. Just the networking and meeting people who I've only seen on Zoom for 2 years. It was really awesome to see them in person. That was really, really fulfilling for me.
Well, I have had so much fun exploring the virtues of this conference, learning a little bit more about you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find you or follow you or keep up with your work? I want to know. Where can they get all the good Sharon Gill content?
Sharon Gill. Okay, it's SharonGill.com is my website, SharonGill.com. And I'm on LinkedIn as Sharon Gill International, I think. Sharon Gill. Sharon Gill International.
Wonderful. For all the listeners out there, thank you so much for listening to us today. If you would like to learn more about EsportsNext or register for the pitch contest, having difficulty speaking here. Finally, right at the end, right? This is how it works. If you would like to find out more, register for the pitch contest, get your ticket to EsportsNext, whatever it may be, please visit esportsta.org, and we will see you next week with a brand new episode.